Sexual harassment claims continue to make local headlines this week as KUNC Public Radio reports claims against Senator Randy Baumgartner have been found, quote, credible. According to reporter Bente Birkland, the woman who made the claim learned the results of the investigation this week from a Senate staffer, and it was suggested that, quote, based on the evidence, there should be a consequence. Meanwhile, Colorado lawmakers and legislative aides started mandatory workplace harassment training on Monday from the Great Timing Office, apparently. Amy, I know usually you lament that if you're on the panel, it's going to be there's going to be some sort of police or deputy or sheriff story. So we made sure there was none of that this week. So how about sexual harassment in the Senate? The floor is yours.
Yeah. So full disclosure, for those who don't know, my husband is a sitting state senator and
not currently with a complaint
he
filed against
by
him.
the way, has not had a sexual harassment claim made against him. So I want to make that clear. But full disclosure, I have no inside knowledge. So there's apparently a Senate staffer who told the woman who made the claim or who made the accusation, and then who then went and told Bente Birkland. So let me see, Senate staffer, woman who made the claim, Bente Birkland, and now we're talking about something that's apparently credible, and there should be a consequence. So what I know of leadership on both sides, whether it's Lucia Guzman or Kevin Grantham, two very decent people, I'm sure that they will take whatever steps are necessary. I have no doubt that they will handle it appropriately. I really believe that. But here's what I would say overall. I think we have to be careful, and this is, as a woman, I say this, be careful between justice and vengeance, and in criminal versus lewd or boorish behavior. I do not think we want due process to die along with everything else. So I would caution that we just don't know. I don't know that anybody's even seen the report yet. So this is sort of somebody told me and somebody told me and then somebody told me. And so now there's a story there. And we just don't know exactly what's in it yet. And I just caution that difference between vengeance and justice and due process matters. And I don't care if it's Steve Lebsack or if it's Randy Baumgartner or Jack Tate or Paul Rosenthal. They have the right to be heard and to present their own side and to not automatically be called guilty.
Amy, I think it's very well said. Eric, do Republicans face possibly a litmus test question? Because for the first few weeks of January, it was all about how Crisanta Duran was going to handle sexual harassment claims in the House, and it was a Democrat. So how are they going to do it? Is there extra pressure on Republicans if they're going to throw rocks from that glass house? So they need to make sure their house is in order. How do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, this issue does not know partisan boundaries. I mean, for every poor acting, bad acting Republican that Democrats can throw stones at, it goes the other way. And the old line about people in glass houses. I agree that Amy, I think, stated it well. I will be curious, and I haven't followed this in detail. Well, first of all, I need to do, and I know she's not winning a lot of popularity contests around the Capitol right now, but Bente Birkland with KNUC is KUNC radio, public radio, Capitol reporter, has been the one driving this story ever since last fall, and hats off to her for some pretty darn good journalism. I will be curious to see how Senate leadership handles it. I agree with you that with Amy, that they are decent people. Right now, it is a very quiet behind-the-scenes process. Ultimately, there needs to be some public accounting here. And whatever the consequence, if there is a consequence, it strikes me that it has to be ultimately, maybe not tomorrow, but ultimately some public consequence. And to Amy's point, we've talked about it around the table before. There are, and I think what is lost sometimes in the last 6 months, because this movement has taken on such momentum, and momentum is very good, but sometimes it leads to a frenzy, is we've lost the gradations. All behavior is not the same. That's not to say any of this behavior is acceptable, but it is not all the same, and we need to make some gradations between what's criminal and what, to Amy's words, are just lewd and boorish, and even degrees both within those categories of criminal and of just lewd.
Scott, there's some obviously very important issues to tackle that have nothing to do with partisanship, but it is an election year. It's a split legislature. Politics are part of the reality. How do both House and Senate leaders need to play this, and then how do the opponents play this so as not to maybe overplay that hand? You can throw a rock, but you don't want the focus being right back on you. How do they go about this?
Well, first and foremost, I want to echo what Eric said. Having lobbied at the state capitol for a number of years, it's a cesspool. And some of the behavior that I've witnessed and that my female colleagues have had to put up with is really terrible. And so I think I'm really thankful that this whole culture has been exposed and that we're talking about it. But I can't get past the point that you made a little bit earlier, which is I think Republicans have gotten their wires crossed. We saw 3 months ago House Republicans going hard against Crisanta Duran, suggesting that she knew there was a predator in everyone's ranks, and this made legislators and interns and everyone else vulnerable. I think that's exactly what Senator Grantham is now leaving himself vulnerable to. And so I do think there is a be careful to throw rocks in glass houses situation on our hands. I mean, I would hate to see this become political fodder for the election, but I do think it will become political fodder precisely because Republicans tried to politicize this 3 months ago, and now the exact same thing that they're accusing the Speaker of may very well be what the President of the Senate is doing right now.
Joey, you are our guy at the Capitol. You've seen how all these issues are breaking down there. What do you think of what we're seeing so far?
Well, Republicans are in an interesting position now. If what we know, and let me also agree with everyone, Bente Birkland has done tremendously good reporting. She hasn't gone off the rails on this. She's verified everything. So, I have no choice and no reason to have any position other than to trust what she's reporting is accurate. So now Senate Republicans have to figure out what they're going to do about it and how they're going to handle it. And the internal politics are at least as interesting as the external politics. And the internal politics are that Randy Baumgardner is a very well-respected member of the Senate caucus. And he's also chair of the Transportation Committee. He was also reelected in 2016, so unless they remove him, which I don't think they will, he's going to be around for 2 more terms. Be careful if you poke that Republican bear. Randy Baumgardner is not a guy who backs down. So, what you see on the outside is not nearly as interesting as what we're going to see on the inside.